Hi, I'm Sandi Genovese and welcome to the Scrapbook Showgram. If you are into recycling, I think you're going to really like today's project because if you look here, you can see that it's actually an older hardbound book, and I have trouble getting, as I told you before, my friends are all into using their electronic readers, and so I just can't find anybody who wants to share books anymore. Even the library isn't very interested in getting books back. Maybe it's just my city, I don't know. But this is a fun way to be able to save and hold on to that book, but to use it in a fun way to create a display. And in this case, it's the display that's holding photos. But you can use it to hold, I've got one in my office that's smaller that I use to hold business cards. It's all kinds of fun things. And the idea is to take the book, and let me just angle this so you can see a little better. You're going to fold the pages in such a way to create this tightly packed group of pages, and they act as the way of holding all the things in there so that you can pull out and reinsert any of these individual projects. I love the idea that everything in here is done without glue, or I call it glueless, and it just makes it so easy to change it up whenever you want to. Now, in order to start, you want to start with the book construction itself. So I shouldn't have started this. I thought it would help to have a little bit of it done already, but I shouldn't have started. So let me open this up a little to give you a glimpse. This was the first page of the book. All I did was fold it right into the crease. And then I did the same thing with the next page, which was a lot thinner and easier. This is folded in. All of these pages are just folded right into the crease of the book, just folded in half. And how perfectly they're folded doesn't really matter. The more you get folding, the more it starts to tilt, and I'll fold a couple more so you can see it is not difficult. And if the folds aren't precise, if one is a little bit less deep than the other, it really doesn't matter. You're going to this is a fun thing to do. I think that might be 2 pages. Nope, it's 1. As you're sitting in front of the TV or just, it's a fun way. It's almost therapeutic because you don't really have to think about it. But you're going to fold all the pages, and it took me maybe, I'm going to guess maybe 20 minutes to fold the pages in this book. This book has almost twice as many pages. So it's going to be, all the pages are going to be packed much more tightly together. And it's going to take a little bit longer to fold them, but it's definitely not difficult. And as I said, as you get more pages folded, it starts to tilt down on itself, and this becomes a nice round. And then the book itself, the front and back cover, become a nice base that is a display to hold it. So this, you would be looking at sort of the same thing as here. Let me move this out of the way so I can show you a glueless way that you can create many of the inside elements that I have on this display as well. Now, this is the shape, here is a finished one, of some of the items that are going to go inside. I'm going to place the photo either vertically. In this case, I have some that are horizontal. But in order for this to happen, a simple way to create this kind of a frame is by folding it into fourths. So it's folded in half and then folded in half again. You can see how you end up getting this kind of shape. When I open it, you'll see this is the paper that I cut it out of. And the reason for folding it first is so that if you cut it when it's all folded up, the top and the bottom will always align and the 2 sides will always align, and that gives you a really symmetrical looking project. So to actually take you through the steps, let me show you. If you take your paper and you fold it in half, and then you want to go back and you fold one more time, this gives you fourths, and then now you need to create that pattern. So here is a pattern that's going to result in something that looks very similar to this one that we're going to look at making today. But it's fun to play with this. Try all different kinds of patterns and just see what what it looks like once it's cut out. It's a little bit like when you used to cut snowflakes and things like that out of doilies. But I'm going to use my pencil line that I just, drew freehand in order to create this. It's kind of a frame in almost, I want to say, a bracket shape. so that when I open this up, I end up with this shape. And because it was in quarters when I cut it, it will be symmetrical, the top and the sides. It will work out. So then you can use this shape if you want to cut multiples. You can lay this down and use this as your pattern if you want, and that way they'll all be the same. Once you've done this, I'm going to go ahead and rather than fold this yellow paper, which is thicker, and I don't want the fold marks. See how this ends up having the fold marks? I don't want those on my interior project. So I'm going to use this as a guide, and I wouldn't normally waste so much paper. I'd go close to the edge, but I am going to try to get my hands out of the way and show how I'm just using this as a pattern in order to trace that symmetrical shape. That's the frame. For, in my example, I've used it as a frame for photos, but of course, it could be for any number of things that you might want. So now that you have the shape outlined, you're going to go back in and cut it out. And what you could do if you wanted multiples of these is, since this cardstock, it's stiff enough to sit up, but you don't want it really heavy because you don't want it to start to fall forward or backward when you place it into the book pages. So you want it to be fairly thin with just a little bit of stiffness. That's why I think, cardstock is a good option. Also, it means that if you wanted to, you could cut 2 of these at the same time. You might even be able to cut 3 of these at the same time, and that way you'd really finish faster. So as I'm rounding the corner, just getting ready to finish, because I haven't been all that careful, there's a few places where I can still see my pencil lines. So either I can erase that now before I do my decorations, or I would just simply turn it over and use this side. Now, because I didn't start with pattern paper, but I wanted it to have a little bit of a pattern on there, what I did was I took my trusty white pen and I used it to create a pattern. However, I know that I'm going to be putting lots of elements inside. I don't need to waste my time going all the way down. I can just do enough so that I create the pattern. I'm going to stop at this point, just in the interest of time, and start to make some of the lines that are going to go the other direction. When you go all the way around all the 4 edges, I'll bring this one back out and show you. You can see, if I move this out of the way, let me move this a little bit. You can see how I didn't bother to do the whole thing because this is going to cover it up. Notice what's cool about this is it's not held with glue. It is held with these slits. And once again, I like to do this because it makes it easy for me to change it up whenever I want to. Even the next layer, this is the same way. This is not held with glue. This just has the same slits, but instead of on the left and right side, it's on the top and the bottom. This is easy to do, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll show you. I want you to I'll put this back in here for now, but I want you to sort of imagine that all of these yellow pattern has been completed all the way around on this, and now it's time to create those slits. First of all, you want to start with the chunk of paper that's going to come next. In this case, it's a piece that looks like this. When I have this set up so that it looks like I have a fairly even border all the way around, and if you wanted to, you could measure. I just want to eyeball it and get it fairly straight. I'm going to use my pencil and I'm going to mark right across from these points, because that's going to be the side spots. I'm going to mark where this wants to sit. I'm going to use this as a guide to use this tool. And let me bring this over and show you. It's from Basic Gray. And what this is, there are several different, it's stuck in there with a magnet. This happens to be the cutting out the slit that is the smile, what I call the smile slit. If you look here, you can see that there's also one that looks like a V, and there's one that cuts just a straight, just a slash. You do want to cut this into a cutting pad. Obviously, you don't want to cut into your dining room table or your drafting table or, you know, whatever surface you're working on. This is going to perfectly cut those little half circles that will hold the next paper in place. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to place it, and I'll stick it down, and then I'll try to move my everything out of the way so you can see. I'm using that pencil line as a guide, and I know I need to line up the edges. So when I have this so that it looks like it's about in the right place, kind of like so, I'm going to put this down, and I'm just going to sort of roll it right over with my hand, right over the top, and I can hear it cutting through there. You can see how it's cut this out. And if I turn this now, you can see how I just lined this up with that pencil line. I'm going to pull this out, and I'm going to do the same thing with this side. So here is the pencil line, and I want the two edges of the blade lined up with that pencil, and I want it sort of centered roughly across from this point. So I can center that up, lay it down, and then I just use the pressure of my hand. It's not hard at all in order to roll this, and once again it cuts all the way through. You don't even have to do all four sides. You only need to do two sides to hold it in. At this point, I'll erase my pencil lines, and I'll go ahead and I'll show you how easily then this is going to tuck into that slit. So let me, if my hand is in the way, I'll move it. Oops. I'll get it started, and then you can see how it's going to just slide in there. So this is going to hold this layer together. I then would just repeat the same process. I would lay the next sheet down. I would mark with my pencil the top and the bottom, and then use those pencil lines as a guide in order to create the next layer of slits, so that you can see here are the side slits on the yellow, here are the top and the bottom, the vertical slits on the orange, and inside this final sheet is where I've then, and you can glue the photo on, or if the photo goes fairly close to the edge, the photo doesn't have to be glued either. Everything in this project can be glueless. And I'll bring up a couple of, here's different color combinations using the same concept. And sometimes I have them placed into the display vertically, and sometimes I have them placed horizontally. Look at how you can create, using the same bracket idea, but making a square instead of a rectangle. You create a frame that looks like this. But once again, you're layering, you have the two brackets or the two smile slits on what would be in the way it's oriented right now. This would be the top and the bottom, and then the next one on the two sides. And it allows you, this one, instead of brackets, they're scallops. All of these are just fun, easy ways to be able to create all the embellishments that you can put inside. And that sort of creates what you see toward the back. When you look at the front, that is just simply die cuts. And you can hand cut or die cut, and they can be themed to match the photos that you happen to have in there at the time, because when you change the photos, it's easy to pull out the die cuts. So in this case, I have hearts and X's and O's, and I've got pictures of Quincy, and I'll just show you if I wanted to add a candle. I think I'll put this one back here where it shows a little. It's an easy thing to do. If I wanted to add a heart, all of this is just an easy way of creating this really fun display that you can put anywhere in your house. I've put them on the mantle of my fireplace, on the coffee table. I often use it in place of flowers just to kind of change it up. With a little folding, you can recycle an unused hardbound book into a terrific three-dimensional photo display.